Hey CEA, this is your organizing chair, Kristen Luevanos, and I am joined by three amazing people from UTLA, the Los Angeles Teachers Union. And by the way, they just bargained for a 5% raise during a pandemic. It can be done. Congratulations to you all. And I want to first say thank you for being here. I really appreciate it. We appreciate it. So first, we're joined by Arlene Inouye, current UTLA secretary and chair of the bargaining team. Thank you. Next, Cecily, did I say that correctly? Okay, good. Myart-Cruz, current UTLA president, former member of the bargaining team during the recession. Also, just found out she taught in Compton about 25 years ago. She taught at Roosevelt Elementary. So thank you for helping us and talking to us and being in conversation. And then Erika Jones, current CTA Director, former West Area Chair, and former bargaining team member through the successful strike you had in 2019 and the first COVID MOU. I want to thank you again for all being here and agreeing to do this video to help inform our members and increase CEA's capacity. For those CEA members who don't know, CEA leadership, the e-board, as well as the committees have been working with CTA as well as other locals to try to maximize our strategies and build our capacity. So that said, now to our first question. Knowing what you all know about Compton, its school board, the community, what is some advice you have for CEA members who may feel defeated, may feel like there's no reason? And what do you think should be the first step that we should take? So first, what is your advice?
Thank you for this opportunity. I appreciate being here, and hopefully I see some of my old former colleagues out there. Y'all know how we get down, so I'm looking for you to step up and make Compton, put Compton back on the map, because this is your union. So, I mean, the first set of conversations you have to ask yourself is, are you willing to do the work? Period. End of story. Full stop. Are you willing to do the work? Now, you may be sitting here listening to this conversation and you're like, oh, you know, I have this complaint. I want lower class size. I want a raise. I want respect from the district, so forth and so on. And if that's how you're feeling, then I need you to use all of your anger, all of that frustration, and then put it into action. You cannot implement things if you're not willing to act. You can sit around and complain. And trust me, we have a lot of folks that like to complain. But if you're willing to act, then there's going to be steps that you need to take in order to do that. So my first part is you need to ask yourself, are you willing to work and fight for whatever your issue is? And if the answer is yes, which I hope that it would be, then you need to talk with your building reps or your chapter chairs or whatever the name that you call them here. I think they're called building reps, if I'm not mistaken.
Site reps, yeah.
Site reps, and have some conversations about what you want to see. Now, when I worked in Compton, we held a successful action because they didn't pay us. And I was not working a whole month without a paycheck. They said, come back next week. I was like, we're shutting this thing down. And what we did is went down to the district and we sat down inside of the building to actually get our checks. I was willing to do that work because I worked a whole month and I wasn't going home with nothing in my pocket.
Wow.
So it can be done, but the question is, what are you willing to do?
Thank you. Thank you. Anyone else? That was amazing.
Yeah, thank you for that, Cecily, and it's great to be on this call as well. I just wanted to add that sometimes people think, oh, well, UTLA has all these resources, they have all these people, they have all this leadership, and they're doing all these great things, but that's not us. And I just want you to throw that thought out, if you've had it, right out the window, because everybody, and I mean all unions, all members, as Cecily is saying, if you choose to act, you will get results. And if you choose to act in a united way, in a way that people have clarity on where you're going and what your agenda is, you will have results. And I want to say that UTLA has not always been united. We have been very disjointed. We have not always had strong leadership. We have been, very lax in a lot of ways. We have not been organizing in the past. We've had our strong points and our weak points, right, throughout our history. But have no illusions that this is not a UTLA or any other union thing. This is something that all unions must do and have to do.
Nice. Erika, did you have anything?
Yeah, I mean, just to kind of wrap up what both of my colleagues said, I'm going to take it down to the school site. Are you willing to be a site rep? And then if you already have an amazing site rep, are you willing to be on a site team to help your site rep? And I think we need to look at, a lot of times we look at the union as something so far over here with the leadership over here, not realizing that we're all union leaders at every single level within our, within the entire association. So, I would start like at my school site. What am I willing to do? Even if it's updating the bulletin board to make sure that we all know when the next rep council is going to be, or talking to all of my members to bring issues to rep council. I bet basically it's never going to work if you're waiting on someone else, one, to read your mind and then do the work for you. That's not going to work.
Okay. So what I'm hearing first is really strengthening those sites. You know what I mean? Getting with that anger, realizing that anger it's not that the anger is not okay, but what's happening that causes that anger is not okay. And being willing to then act. Is that pretty much, I just want to make sure I'm hearing that right. And then, strengthening those. So with that said, you briefly touched on it, Arlene. Can you guys briefly describe what UTLA was like before you ran for leadership? What steps you took to build UTLA and how long it took? So what was it like before you ran leadership or ran for leadership?
Well, I'll go. I have a lot of longevity in UTLA. When I left Compton, I landed at a school that had a lemon principal. I'm sure a lot of folks can relate to that. So had a lemon principal, called my union. My union at that time was like, yeah, well, we can't do really anything about it. That's what I was told. But I ended up calling back. I didn't stop. I kept calling. And you know how people shop around? That was me. Don't do that. But I did it. And someone told me, go to your area meeting, which you would call a rep council, right? So I went to that area meeting / rep council, and someone told me, look for this area chair, this area leader, and he looks like Joe Pesci, and he can help you. And may he rest in peace, his name was Duffy. And I went there and I said, I have this issue and I have to bring it forward, right? we have this lemon principle. And he was like, are you willing to do the work? That was the first thing out of his mouth. Are you willing to do the work? And I was like, well, I don't know what it's going to take, but we want to get rid of her. She's been there forever and everybody is like so upset. And I want to say that anger and that frustration did cause me to act, right? But it also says like, what was our union like long ago? We were just kind of going through the motions. We would have a rally, we would wear some shirts. We changed from blue shirts to red shirts. In 2000, there was no like real campaign, like there wasn't like something that gave it some girth. We had different leaders that had different ideologies, different political camps, and so forth and so on. And then in 2014, things changed. And so I'll stop there.
And I'll pick it up from 2014. Thank you, Cecily. As Cecily said, it was like individual personalities. So there wasn't a real clear, a common agenda. And what we put forward in 2014 is the schools LA students deserve. Our members had already voted on that, but we hadn't, the leadership hadn't taken that forward. So the issues of a democratic union, the issues of social justice, the issues of bringing in community and really hearing what parents and community need and are saying and what our students are saying to us. These were what we were committed to with a new leadership team. We were committed to a common agenda, a common vision, and to work together as a team. So it took us actually really 5 years to build up to a strike. We were ready. We were doing the organizing work to prepare to strike. And with that, we built our structures, like Erika was saying, getting our chapter leader at every school site, making sure later we had chapter action teams or contract action teams, but a team were at every school where it's a 10-to-1 ratio, so there's a lot of communication, but also getting our research director for the first time and making sure that we got information out. We had communication, all working to our organizing, research, and communications, all working together on our common agenda. And all of us, a diverse team of leaders, all focusing on different aspects of this agenda. For example, I'm a speech and language specialist, and I was really excited to be able to work with Health and Human Services and special ed and bring them in and see their part in this common agenda that we're all fighting for.
Yeah, and I would just add to that. I mean, I want to touch on something Arlene brought up, the schools LA students deserve. So basically what this was, prior to all of us moving into the leadership positions we would be in during the strike. So prior to that, some of us were in leadership positions, but it hadn't really gelled until we were moving in towards to the strike. But the schools LA students deserve was basically a platform we brought to our House of Reps. So it's like your rep council. It was a platform that rank and file members worked on, wrote out, that included strategy, common goals, centered in what is it that our students needed, and just really like emphasizing that our working conditions are their learning conditions. And if that you really wanted to uplift students, which our district kept saying, right? Like, oh, we're all about the students. Well, if you were really about the students, then these are the things that you would actually want. And so our demands and our fight were centered in that. They were centered in what is best for students. Sorry, I think Seth wants to jump in.
And to add to Erika's point, I think it's very chilling to say like these are the demands that we brought forward in a House of Reps meeting, but because we had a different president, it was shelved until we took over in 2014. So all these demands that are righteous demands for students and our entire educational community. One person put the kibosh on that program, and we could not resurrect it until 2014. So that cycle from 2011 to 2014, it stayed on the shelf. And that was the first piece that we brought back in 2014. So I want to be clear, like a leader could kibosh something that is hella righteous. And, we needed to move that. And I think if we have moved it then, how transformational, I'm trying to think about how transformational it could have been. But the flip side, we didn't get a chance to know. So we knew that we had to enact that when we came in 2014.
Yeah. Oh, sorry.
So
Go ahead, Kristen.
that plan, I just wanted clarification. So that plan, did that, all that stuff come from just a collective of different sites really working together and seeing what they needed? And then you brought that too, and that one person, wow. Okay. So just, wow. Okay. Thank you. See, and we're feeling this because we've had a few, people in leadership when movement starts happening, get offers to be in administration. And so our members are feeling very, they're
Well,
right? Because they're putting faith into a leader, and then that leader goes on.
And I think that's one thing that we collectively and intentionally changed. Like, yes, right now, Cecily is our president, but we are all leaders in this union, and we work together, and we all share common goals of social justice for our students, uplifting, classroom environments, like we all share those goals together. So we talk through it. And so I think that's one thing is your union also can't be a singular leader.
That's
It
right.
can't be. It's never, you're then basically what you've done is you've actually highlighted to the district, who do you need to promote in order to cut the power of the union?
And I think that is super important. I'm sorry, Arlene. I think that's super important, that you have to think of yourselves as a collective and not just an individual. When I leave being the president of United Teachers Los Angeles, there will be someone else. And I am hopeful that that someone else will have the same ideals to continue the work moving forward.
Yeah, absolutely. It's not about an individual person, but it's about the ideas and the agenda that we are promoting for our union. And I wanted to mention too, that when we came on in 2014, we also brought a majority of the board, a board of directors. So again, we're not just talking about 7 officers, which we have in UTLA, but we have a board of 47 people. So for the very first time in the history of the union, we won the officers and the board on the first round. There was no runoffs because people heard us. They heard what we were trying to do, that we were trying to change the direction of the union, to work together as a team, and to be a fighting union. We wanted to fight the privatization and take that on. And we made that very clear of what we were going to do, how we were going to do it, and the fact that we wanted new leaders to rise up at our school sites and chapters, and we needed everybody engaged and involved in our union.
Yeah, it really does take every voice, even in voices you don't agree with, or voices from people you don't like. Like that's one of my things. I don't care if I like you, I'm going to fight for you, and I'm going to fight alongside you.
That's righteous.
You know what I mean?
That's righteous.
Because I got to put my ego aside. Like, if we're really going to make movement, we all put our egos aside.
We all have to put our egos aside, because that means you're not about the work. You're about being
Right.
petty Betty. And that's not the way that you're going to move a union to be
Yeah.
a fighting union. You cannot have egos driving, because it's supposed to be a collective. And it's a collective of voices that are also people who disagree. Like, I'm all for people who can, they can think that they're going to change my mind, right? There may be something to that disagreement. And I was like, okay, at the end of the day, I might say, I agreed to disagree with you, but I appreciate you bringing that forward. It gives me some food for thought to think about, but it also has me in spaces where I don't need to have people being yes people around you, because then you will not see multiple perspectives. If you have a whole bunch of yes people around you, oh yeah, we over here, oh we gonna gossip over here. You are not going to be a fighting union if you keep being petty LaBelle. It's just not going to happen.
Right. And I really appreciate my organizing team, because I have some people that are very like, no, I don't agree with that. What about, you know what I mean? Because then it does give you a fresh insight, you know what I mean? And we need that. Speaking of that, I want to give a shout out to Portia Lowe. She's the one who came up with this idea to meet with you all. This was her action. And so let's give credit where credit is due. And again, and my whole team, we're kind of small, so we're trying to build that up too as well. So with working, because many of you have been working with CEA, do you see any differences between the members of UTLA and the members of CEA that might prevent us from coming together? Or, do you see any differences? Or
Yeah, I could probably take that. I probably work with CEA the most. I'm the chair of the intervention team. So I think I don't necessarily see differences. What I see is different placements on the trajectory. So if I look at the line of where we were or where we are as UTLA, what I see is I'm meeting members exactly where I was 8-9 years ago. And so in my mind, I'm thinking, okay, so then how do we bring you up to speed? And it's not even up to speed, but up to understanding your own power as a union. How can I help support that work and move that along? But at the same time, we are in this environment with the pandemic and the fact that you all have been so beaten down by your district that there is a sense of urgency in the membership to have things change now. And so what I see that is the biggest difference is I think UTLA members understood that change takes time, and we're willing to, like, right off the bat accept that change is going to take time, and let's really think about that. What I see the difference is I feel like your membership actually has a little more trauma with that, and they can't see it yet. Doesn't mean it's not there, doesn't mean it won't happen. They just can't see it yet because, again, you all are like right in this middle of this like really bad, like just environment, right? It's just a really bad environment. So I feel like once you all get a couple of, low-hanging fruit wins, that people are going to start to be like, okay, well, now I'm ready for that conversation of what do I need to build to get further. My worry is, though, that you're not going to get the wins just because you are so disjointed as a union. That's my worry, is that even the low-hanging fruit is going to be incredibly hard.
we're feeling that. The low-hanging fruit does feel very incredibly hard. And yes, we're working in a very toxic work environment. And that is difficult, and we are so disjointed. So it's bringing those voices together. And my biggest thing that I've tried to do is stop reacting, because whenever someone says something, my initial is to react, like, well, then what? You know what I mean? And I realize that I have to put that ego aside. It's not, I really have to listen to every concern and every frustration, because each voice is valid and each voice is going to bring in some input that I hadn't heard before. And so that's, something that I know I'm working on, and I know some fellow organizing members are working on as well, is just really, instead of being reactive, is just to listen and to really hear what each member is saying. So
I
Can I
think
just-
that's the key.
Oh, sorry, I
think
wanted to
that's
add
the
something.
key, is listening. When we first came on board 2014, Arlene is the person who said we need to have a listening tour of our schools. And people were like, what? We're gonna do what? And we went out to schools to actually listen to what is going on out there. What are the frustrations, right? And so, like, hearing the frustrations, hearing the apathy, because every union suffers from apathetic members who are like, I don't care, but they'll be the loudest ones complaining. It's like, I don't care. Yes, you do care. So, like, how can we get you involved, right? And that's the point where I'm saying turning anger into action. That is, that is, how do you turn trauma into joy? I'm like, all of those facets. But the listening piece is so critical, because you should be doing 80% listening and 20% talking. And as educators, we do a lot of talking. We need to be listening.
Yeah, I just want to add, just going back, one of the things that gets lost, we have, our story of UTLA has been uplifted a lot, and people always want to know, like, what's the formula, right? What's the magic that got you there? And I think in that process, some things actually fall through the cracks. Like, I want to lift up this book. So this is Secrets of a Successful Organizer by Labor Notes. And we gave this book to our site reps. We did book studies. So that's another piece of the political education that needed to happen within our membership before we even said, wear your t-shirt, wear your red t-shirt and go to Grant Park, right? Like, there was a lot of political education that was happening. And then also with that, us as in positions of leadership, whether we were on what would be the equivalent to your e-board or steering, we would look at this and we would actually say, okay, what is it that we need to do? And I went to a lot of school sites with this book, and we just did full on study groups, and then talked about, okay, well, if this is the power structure within the district, how is the power structure in the district being mirrored at the school site? So what are the issues at the school site that could actually be those easy wins that ultimately, as we put all those school site wins together, help also push on the district? And so there's a lot, when we're talking about the years, it wasn't just like, oh, we needed these years to, get this person in a position, or, like, yes, we had to get our dues and play like due structure redone and all of that. But it was also, we had to put in the time, and we consider the study part work also. Studying what it is to be a union member and an organizer is work also that all of your members need to put in.
Wow. And that reminds me of when you suggested no shortcuts. I went out and I got that, like, right away, and I got it on Audible, so I'd listen to it, and that drastically changed a lot of my thoughts. So thank you for that. And I definitely wrote down that title. I will definitely get that too.
That's part of the intervention team. We actually got this book for all of your e-board. So we're going to actually start doing a full book study as well.
Nice.
Soon. It's been a crazy time, but soon we'll get to that.
So that sort of takes us to, do you see any similarities between the UTLA school board, or the Los Angeles school board, and the CUSD school board? And if so, what are they, and how do you sort of combat that?
Let me take privatizers. You all have privatizers on your school board. You have folks who who would willingly hand over your schools
For money.
for money. So that's something that's something we share. Yeah.
I didn't even put it there. Like, to me, they're just adversaries, sort of, you know what I mean? But
You have to do a deeper dive.
yeah,
So it's not just adversaries. Like it's not, they don't like you because they don't like you. They
right.
have a goal and a mission, and their goal and mission is to one, break the union.
Mhm.
They're already doing that when they promote folks to admin. They go to the dark side. Yeah, I said it. That's what it is.
That's what we call it too.
Yeah, you go to the dark side. I have an admin credential. I'll never use it because I'm not going there, right? I'm doing advocacy level for members, for our community, and for students. But anyway, privatizers, charterizers, people that will be willing to close schools in the name of philanthropy, foundations, KIP, alliance, whatever the case may be, they'll just do it. And that's a shitty way to be.
Yeah, and it's almost like they do it just for the soundbite, or just so then they can run for higher office.
Well, that's what it all is.
Yeah.
It's all a stepping stone for a higher office. And at the end of the day, when we don't have members calling school board members' feet to the fire, then you will continue to have a perpetuation of privatizers and charterizers because the union is weak and we're not going to do anything. Like right now, we are a 4-3 privatizer group. The thing that I feel like is super important for the work that we're doing, and that we've been able to like move our board, and people are like, how did you get to, how are you moving that board? Because we're not afraid. When you have two cars driving down the road, it's called chicken. I love to play this game because I want to see who's actually going to move, because I know this UTLA, we're not moving.
Let's just put a disclaimer. We don't play it in real life.
Yeah.
Like figuratively speaking.
Figuratively speaking.
Yeah, but
we make them move. With our last superintendent, I had heard all about, XYZ, the relationship, the dynamics. At the end of the day, we were able to move that superintendent. We were able to move his thinking, especially around racial and social justice, around talking about what are the supports that our students need, always bringing it back to kids. Right. Always bringing it back to kids. It's not about, because the thing is, members are going to be like, well, I want a pay raise. Well, yeah, but how does that play with the public, right? Of course, we want a pay raise, and we're going to talk about that. But shouldn't we be talking about class size? Shouldn't we be talking about COVID safety? Shouldn't we be talking about mitigation strategies? All of those things. Should we be talking about homeless youth and houseless families in Compton? Should we be talking about that? And if the answer, and mental health supports, and if the answer is yes, then you can bind up all of these other things that are just, but you have to say, my working conditions affect my students' learning conditions. And if we are in unison about that, then we move the conversation. Then those charterizers and privatizers have to be like, because you're saying, all right, so let me see your budget and I will show you your priorities, right? Let me see, are you going to balance the budget on the backs of students? And if the answer is yes, that's what you're trying to do, then we know what you're about. And it's easy to make them a target at that point because you wrap everything around students.
And I just like to accentuate that point that we had the moral ground because we put students first. And we took bold stands to fight for students. And I think, you know, if you talk about our strike and how we won the strike, we won it because we had parents and community fighting alongside us because we had the same goals. We had the same agenda. It was a nurse at every school. It was lowering class sizes. It was mental health supports. But it was also common good demands of getting rid of the random wanding of that targeted Black and Brown students. It was also green space on campus. It was also community schools. It was also an immigrant defense fund. I mean, those are the kinds of things that we fought together, centering students. And when you do that, you have a tremendous amount of power that we have together that we wouldn't have without each other.
Nice. And I mean, to argue budget, because I know, or to argue pay, because I know our members are worried about that too. You know, if teachers don't have to have side jobs, you know, then they can dedicate more time to, you know, if they're not having to rush out here to go to their second job, then they have time, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
And
just to add-
that is huge. If we're not worried about, you know, how we're going to pay for this or how we're going to pay for that, then, you know, our mental capacity is truly here, you know what I mean? Not somewhere else. And that is very important. That those working conditions are huge, and class size. And, you know, we were just sued a few years ago. The district was just sued, and I know teachers were part of that as well, about, you know, students and their needs, and really providing resources for students with trauma. And, you know, all they did was do like one PD saying that we were going to have
Right.
4 PDs, and nothing ever came of it. And it's like, now they're finally starting to do stuff on bias, which cool, like great, yay. You know what I mean? But when did that lawsuit happen? What, like 4 years ago, 5 years ago? Why, you know, and stuff is just sort of in our district, it's just sort of pushed on us. Like, oh, you want mental health stuff? Okay, we'll give you an SEL block. We won't train you. We won't
Right.
tell you help you with anything. We won't give you, you know, oh, here's a resource, but no, here's a schedule. No, here's anything. It's just all thrown on the teacher to then do. And that, yeah, that.
I will add to that a little bit, because one, I think when we say privatizers, it's almost insider baseball, right? So folks like, but let me explain what that means, right? When you have a privatizer on your board, it's not just someone who is willing to, you know, authorize every single charter that comes to the board, which you do have some folks who do that, or who even authorize charters in other people's district, like like ours, right? So it's not just that. The mentality that we wrap up in just saying the word privatizer is someone who actually doesn't value longevity in education. They don't see educators as professionals. So they basically love programs like TFA, where you come in and you do your 3 to 4 years and then you're out, and I don't have to worry about seniority, and I don't have to worry about a total compensation package for you, and I don't have to worry about a pension for you, and you're cheaper, right? You're cheap labor. And I think that's the piece that folks need to understand, is when you're talking about the boss will do anything they can to have cheap labor, cheap overhead, right? And so when you're looking at what does it mean for us to really put together a fight that includes a package of total compensation, that includes benefits and a pay raise, right? Then you're looking at a holistic approach of what do we need in order to have a healthy school environment. What do we need? So we're not saying, no, absolutely, you don't deserve a raise and you can't fight for a raise. What we're saying is fighting for that raise is connected to a bigger problem as far as how you're looked at and respected as educators, and also ultimately how your students are looked at and respected also. So looking at it and connecting it to that bigger picture is huge. And then also explaining to the community, that was one thing. We first, before we went on strike, we actually won a raise like 2 years prior to us going on strike. So our strike didn't become about the raise at all. It wasn't at all. But that raise we had won 2 years prior was the first raise we had actually gotten in years. In fact, we took, like many folks, we had taken pay cuts because we took furlough days during the recession. In fact, our district got out of the recession on our backs as educators. So we had gone through, I think it was 2007 to 2014, 15, no raise. And then we got a raise in, it was either 2014 or 2015, we got a raise.
I think
And
it was
then
8 years.
yeah, we had gone 8 years without a raise. So that's another thing when folks look at UTLA, they're like, oh, well, look, they get raises all the time. No, actually, we went through a huge time when we weren't. And frankly, every single teacher association probably in this state is still in a restoration process from what happened during the recession. But you have to be able to have those conversations with the community. And you also have to say to the community, I'm not just asking you to show up for me right now. I'm willing to show up for you also. And here's how we're going to do it.
It's a relationship. And the one thing about privatizers too, is that they're not conducive to building community schools. You know what I mean? Because being in this community, I don't live in the community, but I adore this community. I've had families come through. I've met some amazing people. They have community events that I've gone to. And that's just, you know what I mean? If you're going to be a teacher, it's not just, oh, you go and do your job. You're here for the community, you know? But yes, and Erika, thank you. I see that. She's going to switch over because she has to run, but she said she'll dial in. So thank you. I just wanted to clarify for the video. So when you felt discouraged, because I know you all did at one point, right? What helped you get through that with discouragement? Like what, was there a strategy you had or a way to sort of encourage each other that got you through it? Like because I know you probably felt discouraged many times. So what helped motivate through that? Because that's where a lot of members are. So they might like to hear, what helped.
Well, I don't know if discouraged is quite the word that we felt. I know that we had times where there was things didn't go the way that we had hoped, or the district put one over on us or delayed. For example, when we were preparing to strike, they would delay the time that we could strike. They would put these legal barriers up, and those things were frustrating. And then we would, meet and talk about, well, what are we going to do? What are our options? Our members having fear, uncertainty, and doubt. We constantly talked about that. Like, for example, we had people right at the beginning saying, I'm not going to strike. I'm a single mother and I need to work and I can't do it, period, point blank, right? That was it. But it's really interesting that as time went on, and right at the end, when we couldn't strike before a certain date because of these legal barriers the district put out, people were clamoring to strike. When can we go out? We're ready to go out. Why is the district doing this? And it kind of worked against them. They thought that they were stopping us, but everything they did to stop us gave more stronger desire on our members to go on strike. And like, why is the district trying to keep us from striking? It just made them angrier. So, I think we talk about it. You fear, uncertainty, and doubt. You talk about what the district is doing. You talk about, well, what's the alternative? You talk about the way that, people are trying to detract you or take your focus away, and why that is. And I think people turn around and say, yeah, we need to do this for ourselves and for our students and for our communities. So it's just working it through, taking the time to work through all of those barriers.
So we're getting close to the end of our time, and I want to honor you guys and quickly, but what I heard is really discussing, having those conversations, not being afraid to, you know, discuss the truth of the matter. So nice. And you mentioned t-shirts, because that's a huge thing for our teachers. A lot of them are like, what's the point? What's the point? Can you clarify for that really quickly, and then I'll let you guys head out.
All right. Or if there's another, you know, burning question that you want, we can answer it as well. But the purpose of t-shirts is building unity and solidarity, period, end of story. Is really simple. So like here in UTLA, it's a big thing to wear your UTLA red shirt. We've done little things on Facebook and Instagram and social media, but really at the end of the day, principals are counting how many red shirts folks are wearing. And when you don't wear your red shirt, it is an issue, because they're like, oh, that school is weak. And so while it's a simple act, it says that we are a collective and we're doing this work together.
So I heard two things. One, solidarity, feeling like we're part of that community. And then two, the district is watching it. Arlene, did you have something else?
Yeah, Kristen, I just wanted to add that I've been reflecting on this a lot, but I feel like it's such a privilege to be in a union. And I feel proud to be able to have a voice with a democratic body, to be able to be level with our employer, and to be able to fight back on things that we feel strongly about. And so I hope that people think about wearing shirts as an opportunity that we have, that a lot of workers don't have. A lot of workers don't have a voice. They don't have a union. So I just want to encourage all of your members in Compton to really feel that pride and to take it on, that this is an avenue that you have.
Right. And many people died to fight for a union and fight to be able to have a union. And remembering that fight, that having a union has not always been the way, you know, it's not the norm. And many states have lost that as well. There's a huge attack. You did say one question. So you guys were, I believe you were successful in getting some school board members elected, right? You helped with electing some members to your school board. What did that take specifically? And then I'll let you go. Yeah, because that was one that was huge, because we have 4 seats up for election this year on our school board.
Right. So the first thing you would need to know is, do you have the juice to run all 4? Do you have the money? Because it takes money and it takes a lot of political juice and capacity. And if the answer to both of those is no, then you need to rework your plan. Because it's not going to just fall on the president and the executive board. It is going, and the organizing committee is going to fall on every single member that's a seat, that's Compton, to carry the load. That is what's going to happen. We were unsuccessful in our bid for one of our school board members, and you know, it was a pandemic, all of that, right? And we were trying against odds. It ended up, she was a great candidate. It ended up in name recognition, because the person that they ran against her was a former teacher, right? And so she was a parent and a community member, but having a teacher. So you also need to like have eyes wide open. Can you beat that person? Can you beat them? Do you have the money? right? And while that sounds so horrible and basal, you also have to know, do you have the community support? Because it's not going to just be Compton folks out in the streets. You're going to need to activate parents and community members to do walks with you. Are you engaged in local faith churches? Do you have the connects at the churches to help you do organized walking and campaign? And again, if the answer is no, then you have to say, why not? Why have you not engaged with those folks? And it starts with a conversation, and then it'll, and then it grows from there. But if you're not willing to build relationships, because that's the thing. And that's what I saw happen with our union, is that we are real good at saying, oh, we need you, we need you, we need you. And then we don't continue to engage you in the process. You cannot do that. You have to, if we're building community, then we're building this community together to strengthen our resolve for the students. And if we're not doing that, and we're not willing to do that, then you're going to get what you get.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I really appreciate it, and I want to honor your time. And I just want to say, a lot of that I've heard is we need to do a lot more talking and listening. Leadership needs to listen, and our members we need to have those avenues where our members can do more talking. And then we also need to have the conversations with our community. So thank you, ladies. I appreciate it so much. I'm going to